Hi everyone, this is Olga Mack, working from home, building the future of contracts. And today I have an opportunity to talk to my very good friend, a woman I admired for a very long time, Sharon Zezima. She's been an iconic figure in Silicon Valley. I consider her my mentor. And the thing that I really love to talk to her about is to how to navigate boardrooms. Sharon, I'm sure my introduction didn't do justice for you, so why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Olga. Yeah, of course you know me, but for others who don't, I have been deputy general counsel and then general counsel of four different Silicon Valley tech companies, namely Electronic Arts, then Marketo, then GoPro, and then finally Pax Labs. And I actually took two of those companies public, Marketo and GoPro, and with all four of them have worked extensively with the boards of those companies.
So let's talk about the crisis and the issues that CEOs and members of the board have to face in light of this crisis. Something that nobody expected, something nobody would wish upon themselves, but something that everybody now has to deal with.
Yeah, well, I think risk management overall is always an important area for boards and executives, but even more so today. There are all kinds of risk management issues, especially with highly regulated companies like fintech, but also with emerging technology companies like self-driving vehicle technology and two areas that I worked in, drone and cannabis. But for sure, this COVID crisis presents many areas of risk management for executives and boards to review. Now, I think one area of risk management that applies across all companies is culture risk. I think culture risk is where cybersecurity was 5 years ago, in that now it really is a must have. Boards really need to pay attention to it versus a nice to have. Specifically, companies should ask if there's any risks that would be a danger to the business. And if there are, how do they go about addressing that, getting visibility, managing those risks? We see with examples like Uber, where there was a toxic culture, or WeWork, where there was an overestimated leadership ability, or Zenefits, where there was a questionable compliance culture. With all of those, that runaway culture ended up with a loss of that company's leadership position and real financial impact. Those are the kinds of things that boards really need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Those are definitely iconic moments in the valley in terms of what could possibly be done better. You mentioned culture risk and the risks around it. I would like to talk a little bit more about, because boards rely on executives to know what's going on, and how do they stay informed? How do they identify those issues earlier? How do they deal with those issues? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think that is the thorny question around boards and addressing culture risk. I think, first of all, each company and board needs to determine which metrics around culture are most meaningful to them, and then how to get the best visibility to those metrics and factors. Because often, boards don't have that visibility, or if they do, it's actually being filtered through a CEO and exec team. And sometimes that could end up with bad consequences if they're not getting the whole story. I think the best governed companies these days are actually creating culture dashboards, and the boards review those culture dashboards on a regular basis. You see metrics like turnover, harassment complaints, and other hotline responses, employee survey results, Glassdoor reviews, customer complaints, and many other factors, some which may be specific to individual companies. But there are a lot of companies out there actually working on making these dashboards more user-friendly and more integrated with existing HR and other culture-related technology that a company might have. And there's just more tools in the toolbox than ever for companies to be able to assess culture. Certainly there are the traditional hotlines, there's Culture Amp, but newer ones like a company I advise, All Voices, which is a tool for real-time complaints and other input. and it has a sophisticated dashboard that boards could actually access directly. So there isn't that filter potentially from the executive level.
Very interesting. Yeah, yeah, you're right. Keeping a hand on the pulse, on the culture pulse, is very critical. Is it? Would that be different or similar, or how would it be different for private company boards? Do they face similar issues? Do they address them in a similar way? What are your thoughts on the difference between public and private companies?
Yeah. Well, for sure, it's private and public companies that need to worry about culture risk. And I guess I would say maybe private need to pay even more attention. I think in some of the examples, and maybe all of the examples I gave, those were all private companies. And often venture capital companies invest in the founders of a company. So if a founder is part of the problem, they may, as the board members, be more hesitant to take action, whether that's moving that person out or taking some other actions. I think the good news is private boards are increasingly bringing on more independent directors with governance experience. And I think even some of them bringing them on earlier than what you might have traditionally seen, which is just pre-IPO. So that's a good opportunity for upping the game, if you will, for private companies in governance, but it's also an opportunity, frankly, for diversity on the board. So if the board's not already diverse, potentially bringing on a diverse candidate who is independent and has that governance experience. But if private companies aren't bringing on independent directors with that experience and they don't already have it, then I think it's really important for boards to get their directors well-schooled in governance. And there are plenty of ways to do that. Stanford Directors College is a great option, for instance.
Sharon, I love this conversation. The importance of culture and the importance of directors in the boardroom to consider it is very critical. I think it's a big part of what the board needs to be now in the middle of this crisis. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, learned so much from you. It's always great to catch up.
Yes, that was great. Thanks, Olga. Bye for now.